Καλησπέρα και από μένα. Thank you, John, very much for this very flattering introduction. I'm really very glad to be here and honored to talk here tonight. And thank you very much for the invitation. Archaeological research in the last 30 years has enhanced very much the understanding of the changing social, political, and economic structures in prehistoric Central Macedonian communities. It has shown the variability of settlement organization in Neolithic Central Macedonia, and we all know, for example, the emblematic flat extended site of Makrigalos, as opposed to a Toumba site like Dikili-Tash, and I'll be talking about that later. It has also showed the domination of self-contained Tel communities, starting with the 3rd millennium BC, communities like the early Bronze Age site of Archondiko near Yanitsa, with the series of houses which are really identical in terms of size, in terms of activities, and everything really is included inside these houses, all these activities. It has also illuminated the rise of intra-regional hierarchical networks during the 2nd millennium BC, with sites like Assiros Toumba and the large storerooms of Phase 9, or Toumba Thessalonikis with the large storerooms of Phase 4 in the 12th century, as opposed to smaller sites like Agios Mamas in Chalkidiki or Kastanas Toumba on the Assiros Valley. And of course it has shown the transformation of the collective rules which prevented the growth of Tel communities beyond the limits of Tels, and the rise at the beginning of the early Iron Age of population centers and probably urban or proto-urban societies in Central Macedonia. Several large settlements like the well-known tables in Thessaloniki Toumba, in Syndos and in other places show some radical changes at the beginning of the 1st millennium. The Anthemous Valley has certain advantages regarding the investigation of the regional aspects of the synchronic variability and the diachronic change and the dynamics of settlement in Central Macedonia between the 6th and the 1st millennium BC. For one thing, as you can see here, it's south of Thessaloniki, very close to the city, about 25 kilometers, very close to my house as well. It is a small valley, about 30 kilometers long, which has about 24 of already known archaeological sites of various periods, from the Neolithic to the early Iron Age, and several others which go even farther into the historical period. This opportunity to investigate the Anthemous Valley led to a joint project between the 16th Ephoria at that time, which is now the Ephoria of Periphery of Thessaloniki, with Dr. Maria Papa as responsible. And I must here thank also the previous directors of the 16th Ephoria, Dr. Misailidou and Dr. Sorry, forgot the name now. Sorry, Lilian Achilara, yes. And the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, represented by me, and the Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan, which is collaborating with the University of Thessaloniki, and of course various collaborators from other universities and students from Thessaloniki and Poland. The first stage of this exploration had quite moderate aims. The aims were the definition of the limits, the size, the duration of known prehistoric sites from the Neolithic to the early Iron Age, the study of changes in the habitation patterns on the regional and on the site level, the study of the habitation patterns in relation to local resources, a detailed documentation of prehistoric sites to facilitate their protection by the Archaeological Service, and of course it is a preparation for a second stage of a more intensive investigation, which is planned for the near future. Now, to do all this, required the re-examination of excavated sites, surface investigation and sampling of known sites, mapping of sites, geomorphological research, geophysical investigation, study of mineral resources such as flint and gold, analysis of finds, and the special processing, of course, of the collected data. Before I start the discussion of the project, I need to say a few things about the Anthemous Valley. As you can see here, it has two distinctive parts: the lower basin, which reaches the Thermaikos Gulf, and the upper basin, which is about 250 meters above the sea level. And of course, it is surrounded by hills and then by the mountains of Hortiatis and Holomondas on the north and on the northern and eastern side, and a series of hills on the southern side. And in the valley, you can see there are some stable features. In most periods, most of the sites are related to the Anthemos River, which now, of course, it's at least in the lower valley, it's a rather small stream. But there are several periods where this pattern changes, and I think this is quite interesting. Now, starting from the Neolithic, there are 4 sites at the Neolithic, which belong to the Neolithic period. 3 of them start from the Middle Neolithic, and then one more is added in the late Neolithic period. A common characteristic of all these sites is the fairly large size. As you can see in this chart, they vary between 18,000 square meters down to 8,000 square meters. And these are the 4 sites. One is on the hills right above the Anthemos Valley near Thermi. The other 2 are on the or very near the river, and the third in the lower valley, and the third is in the upper valley. The interesting thing is that these sites, although they are in very small distance from one to the other, they seem to be fairly different between them, although they were inhabited more or less at the same time. The first site I'm going to deal with is the site of Thermi, which has been excavated actually since 1987 in salvage excavations by the 16th Euphoria, first by Takis Gramenos and then by Maria Papa. The characteristic of this settlement are the pit houses, pits that often are strewn with cobbles, and several large open spaces between these pit houses. So basic characteristics are the large open spaces, shallow deposits, and the lateral expansion of habitation. Each new house is built not on the previous house, but in another location. The other settlement that I'll discuss is a settlement near the village of Galatista in the upper valley. This settlement, which is right here, seems to be quite similar to the one in Thermi. It is a flat, extended site, very similar in size. It is slightly smaller. Thermi is about 10,000 square meters. Galatista is about 8,000 square meters. And as you can see here from the sampling, it covers a flat area on the slopes of a very low hill. Now, the interesting thing is that when geophysics investigation indicated that the site probably was surrounded by a ditch, and inside this ditch there are several features which probably are similar to the pit house that we saw in Thermi. There are some other structures which are probably later, probably Byzantine or Ottoman, because there is Byzantine and Ottoman use of the site as the survey has shown. There's probably another ditch here, and in many respects, this site reminds the picture that we have from Makrigelos I, which belongs to the late Neolithic I period, as you can see here, around the end of the 6th millennium and the beginning of the 5th. The third site, however, which is the largest, is very different from both of these sites. And this is the site, this one here, which is the site of Vasilika, Kiparisi Vasilika, or Vasilika Se, as it was known from the investigation of David French in the 60s. This is a huge site. It's about 18,000 square meters. But what is really very different is that when Dimitris Gramenos did 2 trial trenches here in 1981 and in 1983, he excavated deposits which reached the depth of more than 5 meters. So it's a site which is really very different from the shallow sites that we just saw in Thermi and in Galatista. The survey more or less confirmed the large size. I think it shows that it is slightly smaller than it was thought originally. And of course, the sampling indicated that most of the area is covered by Neolithic. All of it was used in the Neolithic period, but there is a concentration of habitation, probably on this part in the early Bronze Age. In order to somehow check Gramenos' result and see if the picture that was shown in these two trials was the same in all for the whole site. We were lucky to find a long profile which was cut by the stream that is coming down right next to the site. And this profile we prepared and studied and drew with, as you can see here. And this gave us some quite interesting results. Part of this profile, as you can see here, had very little evidence of floors and walls of houses, but most of it was covered by deep pits, as you can see here, with material which belongs both to the late Neolithic I and late Neolithic II, and also a little bit of early Bronze Age. It is only at the bottom part of this profile that one could see some habitation deposits. On the other hand, farther to the north, the situation was quite different. Here one can see a series of overlapping floors and a series of overlapping mud brick walls, as well as hearths and other facilities inside these houses. And actually, this picture, this stratigraphy is a stratigraphy that reminds it is much closer to the stratigraphy of a tell, like the tells we have in later periods, than to these flat extended sides that we've seen before. So the question is, how was this site organized, and how did it acquire this huge size of the 18,000 square meters? Now, we also had the opportunity to take some samples from micromorphological sampling, and Stella Kielidou, as soon as she's finishing her PhD, she's going to examine them. And also we had we were able to get some samples for dating, which really give a very convenient date at the end of the 6th millennium, at the beginning, more or less at the end of the second half of the 6th millennium, which is very appropriate for the finds. Now, besides this profile, however, in 2012, there was a huge opportunity to excavate for the Ephoria, to excavate along this road on the occasion of the widening of the road which leads from Thessaloniki to Polygyros in Chalkidiki. This was extremely helpful and very illuminating because this excavation, which was done by Dr. Maria Papa, and I'm showing some photographs which was very kind to allow me to show. This excavation more or less repeated the pattern that we saw, that one sees both in Gramenos' trenches, but also in the profile that we examine on the northern part of the site. As you can see here, there are walls, actually the two walls of the same house, which is about 9 meters long or 9 meters wide, we don't really know, and successive floors like the ones that we saw in the profile. And here, of course, we can see also the how the inside of the houses, or how the actual deposits look like. We have the inside of houses with hearths and ovens, but also we have features like the deep pits that we saw in our profile. So what one can see in this in this narrow but quite long part of the excavation is the succession of houses, one over the other, but also the lateral movement of these houses as from one successive house to the other. And then there are empty spaces which have these pits and which after some time are occupied again by the houses. The walls are made of mud brick, and some of them have stone foundations. And here you can see a profile which is exactly like the one we saw in the northern edge of the site. And again, of course, we had the opportunity to take some samples. Now, during the sampling, we were able to collect all kinds of finds that really are seem to be quite representative of the history of the site. We found some Middle Neolithic pottery, which it dates the earliest phase of the site, and then both Late Neolithic I and Late Neolithic II pottery, and a series of figurines, one which is decorated in the black and red, Late Neolithic II style, a series of seals and jewelry made out of shell, and all kinds of other finds, tools made of flint, probably from a nearby source, but also from various other sources which come from outside the area, and several tools, groundstone, and other. In fact, the pottery from the excavation is quite similar to the pottery that we found in the survey. What is more interesting is that in this area that was excavated, both by Gramenos and by Dr. Maria Papa, there was no Late Neolithic II found, while the survey found late Neolithic II in other locations of the site. So, for example, the excavation gave some nice Middle Neolithic pottery, as well as Late Neolithic pottery of the well-known styles, matte painted and black burnished and others. And of course a series of figurines, not very different from what we found, and a series of stone tools, lithics and stone tools, and other materials, seals, etc. The geophysical investigation of the site probably showed also some interesting results here. In the most northern part of the site, it seems that we could see a small either perivolos or probably a ditch here, and inside large features which are probably rectangular houses, perhaps not very different from the houses that were excavated in the southern part of the site. If then we put all this together, it seems that from the materials, the building materials, which are mud bricks, but mainly the fact that the site was probably organized in small nuclei, which were inhabited for some time and rebuilt in situ for some time, but then were deserted and people moved in a different location, is the result of the formation of this huge site of the 18,000 square meters. So despite the huge size of the site, This is not a flat extended site. In fact, it is a very different type of organization, of settlement organization. Now, a fourth site, a fourth settlement, is, as you can see here, a real Toumba. It's a tell near the village of Nera de Stos. What is interesting about this site is that our survey and the sampling showed. I forgot to say that this site is very near, is really deep in the bottom of the valley. Despite this, however, we are able to find Neolithic pottery on the surface, and indeed this Neolithic pottery seemed to be quite well concentrated around the basis of the Toumba. So it seemed that it's quite possible that this Toumba, which is about 16, this tell, which is about 16 meters high, had underneath a settlement, and the question was, what sort of settlement was underneath? Was it a tell site, probably similar to the Basilica, but much more, much less wider, much smaller, or was it a flat extended site like the two sites that I described at the beginning? To solve this, and of course this is some of the Neolithic pottery that we found, but the rest, of course, of the site is Bronze Age. To investigate some of these problems, we tried electric resistivity as well as cores, and the purpose here was twofold. First, to examine the geomorphological changes at the bottom of the valley, because it was quite possible that a lot of what was underneath was covered by alluvium, and also to check the deposits of the Neolithic. Now the electrical resistivity, it showed that this is the Toumba, and it showed that there are fluvial deposits on the southern part of the Toumba and fluvial and terrestrial deposits on the northern part of the Toumba, and of course then the drillings that we did with a mechanical drill gave some quite interesting results. We did only three. We had the opportunity to do only 3 drills. It would be nicer if we could do some more. But still, these were quite revealing. So the first drill, which is here on the, you can see it here, on the southern part, showed that on the southern part of the, here, at some distance from the Toumba, there was a lot of brachy water, so the river was probably coming much nearer to the site, and there were no habitation deposits that were found there. Oops, sorry. Okay. The second, however, the second drill, however, which was really at the basis of the Toumba, indicated some several meters of deposits, and in fact we're quite lucky to find destruction deposits, which inside, apart from charcoal and other material which are under analysis now for carbon-14 dating, it had some very clear indications of Neolithic, late Neolithic I pottery. So we had a very good date of these deposits. On the other hand, on the northern part of the settlement, the drill on the northern part of the settlement indicated both terrestrial deposits superimposed by fluvial deposits, and the terrestrial deposits we're quite sure that they are the virgin soil of the area. So the way one could reconstruct, at least in a preliminary way, the situation here is that the site was founded on the lower terrace, just above the lower terrace, just above the river, which was passing somewhere here to the south, and there was a Neolithic site which had deposits which were about 4 meters deep underneath the 16-meter tell. So in this respect, it seems quite interesting that in this small area of the Anthemous Valley, one could see three different settlement patterns, three different settlement types of settlement organization coexisting in the same period. One is the flat extended sites with lateral expansion. The other is the tell site, like this one, a regular tell site, which is quite well defined. And the last was the huge extended but not flat site of Kyparisi Vasilika. Okay. All right. Now, and coming back to Kyparisi Vasilika, there was another interesting find. Both the survey, but the excavation, were able to find pottery which could be dated to either the final Neolithic or the very early Bronze Age, which is really very rare because there are no deposits of this period from whole Central Macedonia, and it is an indication that some of these sites, at least, do not have a hiatus between the end of the Neolithic and the beginning of the early Bronze Age. And this is one of these two sites. In fact, the Vasilika site, you can see, right at the very beginning of the early Bronze Age, all the rest of the site was abandoned, and habitation was concentrated on this most northern point, and it formed a very shallow or a very low tell here with some characteristic early Bronze Age pottery. And of course, after a while, it was totally abandoned. Now, for the early Bronze Age, the characteristic of the early Bronze Age in the area is that the flat extended sites and the big sites like Vasilika, Kyparisi Vasilika that we had in the Neolithic, they disappear completely. And they are replaced by small tell sites, which may mean that communities which were larger during the Neolithic period break down into much smaller groups comprising 2 or 3 households in some cases. For example, Kyparisi Vasilika was succeeded by 4 or 5 very small tells, which are very near the area. I'll show you in the map in a moment. And some of them are just one period sites, which were built on, were founded on hilltop. One other characteristic of these sites is that all activities are concentrated in a very limited area, in the area of the tell, and there is no activity that, no traces of any activity outside the tells. So this is a characteristic which continues throughout the Bronze Age in Central Macedonia. On the regional level, one can see expansion to higher zones away from the valley bottom, and this may probably be associated with the changes in subsistence strategies. One stable characteristic in all these new sites is that they are always founded next to a stream. And of course, there is a new type, totally new type of material culture, complete disappearance of any decorated pottery, only monochrome pottery, first appearance of storage vessels, and drinking and serving vessels like jugs. Finally, this is the first time that even in the Anthemous Valley we have pithos burials next to a tell. And here are some of the tells of the area. Some of them are quite small, 400 square meters, 500 square meters, up to 1,000 square meters. Metamorphosi, Agia Paraskevadis were abandoned after a very short period. Lutra, which continued to the late Bronze Age and even later. And these are two pithos burials right next to Agia Paraskevi, a form of burial which is known in Central Macedonia during that period, both from Agios Mamas and from Pella and from other cemeteries. In Lutra, as you can see here, the Bronze Age pottery is concentrated on the tell. There is very little outside, and which is probably wash from the tell, while there is early Iron Age pottery which spreads around, and I'll come to that in a little while. Now, the size, as you can see here, decreases radically. Compared to the 18,000 square meters, we have size which are less than, 5,000, but less even than 1,000 square meters belong to this period. With the exception of one site, which really belongs to the very early Bronze Age, all the others probably start at a progressed stage of the early Bronze Age. And of course, there are many more sites now. I mean, almost double the number of the sites that we had in the Neolithic period. If we look at the at the typical distance of the sites, which is more or less expected, they seem to be more concentrated, one closer to the other. And this may mean, in fact, that all these communities are connected by some sort of bounds, family or other, and they probably form one larger community, because the distances between them are quite small, at least in the bottom of the valley. But then you can see here expansion away from the river in an area which doesn't look so promising in terms of agriculture and farming, and some other similar situations are in the upper valley. And here you can see one of these new sites, the Assiros Toumba, a tiny site which is right next to a deep stream, hidden among the hills of the upper, which surround the Anthemous Valley. The second millennium is a period of moderate increase and expansion of the tell settlements. As you can see here, there is the same number of sites which belong to the Middle Bronze Age, but one has to take into account that some of the early Bronze Age sites disappear and they are replaced by new sites which start in the Middle Bronze Age. But there is a distinct increase in the number of sites during the late Bronze Age. So two new sites which are closer to the sea, and this is something new, and continue into the early Iron Age, start at the beginning of the Middle Bronze Age, and they become really very important even in the historical period. And generally, there is, as we'll see in the map, there is a shift of settlement, of the settlement system, of the whole system, settlement system, closer to the Thermaikos Bay, the Thermaikos Gulf Coast. The expansion to zones away from the valley bottom continued, and there are two new, small, and very short-lived hilltop sites which were founded during this period. And you can see the movement towards the sea of the settlements during this period, and these are the two new settlements close to the sea. Actually, this should probably have been right on the coast. The situation is not very different from what was seen in the Langadas Basin, although there the number of sites that were founded in the late Bronze Age was much larger than in the Anthemous region. Now, some general characteristics of these sites. The small size of the settlement and the strict confinement of all the activities in the limits of the tel continues. Both new sites, which are closer to the coast, Gona and Thermi Toumba, displayed mud brick constructions, as at least it is we learn from the rather very confused information that is given by Léon Rey, who excavated these sites at the beginning of the 20th century. During the World War I as part of the Armée de l'Orient. So they have walls or terraces or retaining walls or perhaps defensive walls on the slopes, which are not different from what we see in huge sites like Thessaloniki or main sites like Thessaloniki and Assiros Toumba at the same period. One of the two sites, Thermi Toumba, is indeed the largest site in the valley, around 2,100 square meters, And just to compare, Thessaloniki Toumba around the same period is 4,000 square meters, but Assiros Toumba is 1,500 square meters during the final late Bronze Age. And you can see the sizes, the range of sizes of these settlements, of these tels, which is still, again, very small compared to the Neolithic, but as well compared to what's happening next, in the next period. Indeed, some of these sites are really tiny because, as you can see, the deposits are not very thick. And in a site like this, you can see the team here on top of it. One can not imagine that it was inhabited for more than 2 or 3 small households. And the same one could say about the Toumba of Galatista. And there are other sites similar to that. Well, these are the two sites that were founded in the Middle Bronze Age. This is Gona, right next to the sea, and which is a fairly small site, but it has these mud brick constructions that I mentioned. And this is the largest Toumba in the area, the largest tel in the area, the site of the Toumba of Thermi. One interesting feature of the period is the spread of decorated handmade and Mycenaean-style ware, which was probably used for drinking and perfume, judging at least from the shapes of the Mycenaean-style ware. And it is quite interesting that one finds Mycenaean ware in all sites, both small and large, both remote sites which are up on the hills and in the large sites like Thermi. So it seems that this pottery is used probably in some occasions which are really very crucial for the life of the inhabitants of these sites, and it has been associated with hospitality and feasting, probably, which seems to rise during this period, at least judging from what we see in other sites like Toumba, Thessaloniki, or Assiros Toumba, Kastanas, and other excavated sites. Now here are some of this decorated pottery, and then some of the Mycenaean from Toumba Panikova, for example. Toumba Panikova is one of the most remote sites, which has some very nice Mycenaean pottery, as you can see, and this is the typical shape that one of the amphoriskos with calyx foot that one sees is typical of Macedonian, of Central Macedonia Mycenaean pottery. So, what one could see happening in the late Bronze Age in the Anthemous Valley is the rise of differentiations between communities and probably also between groups inside communities related perhaps to the use of the Mycenaean and the decorated pottery. At the same time, regional networks of communities, perhaps with hierarchical structure, not very different from what is happening in the Thessaloniki plain or in the Langadas basin or in the Axios Valley, where big sites like Thessaloniki Toumba or Assiros or Vardarovtsa Axiochori seem to dominate the area, and the other smaller sites in these sub-regions of Central Macedonia. And to finish with the early Iron Age, here things really become very different. For one thing, there is a substantial increase of settlements. We've got 12 settlements that belong to the early Iron Age. But what is impressive is that for the first time, several of these settlements are quite far from the river. The pattern that the settlement was concentrated along the river is breaking down now. And again, there is a shift of the settlement towards the sea. What is perhaps even more impressive is the radical changes in the size of the settlements. From the tiny settlements of the most 2,000 square meters, we have sites that are up to 44,000 square meters during this period. There are at least two sites of this size, at least that we could measure with some certainty. So, considerable increase in the settlement number, several settlements outside the bottom, farther shift towards the sea, radical increase in the site, and, most important, relocation of habitation outside tells. It seems that the tell system starts breaking down. Not that tells disappear, but people are not confined, and habitation is not confined inside the tell limits anymore. There's a new type of larger settlements, which Léon Rey again called tables. These are tells again, but are flatter and much bigger. I'll show you in a moment. Several tells go out of use, but not all of them. few remain in use, but habitation expands outside the tell as well as on top of it. Two very good examples are the Amalara region. There's a small tell that I showed you was somewhere here, and now we have two rather big sites, one table here and another here. You can see the table over here, and you can see the Toumba here with the late Bronze Age pottery, but the early Iron Age pottery covers this area. Actually, there are also walls and constructions that are preserved there. And the other example is in the region of Thermi, not far from Thessaloniki, and here again, not far from the late Bronze Age Toumba, a new site is founded on a low natural knoll, the table of Thermi, which continues, of course, to be inhabited until the Roman period. The tell is not deserted, but recent salvage excavations by the Ephoria showed big storage rooms with huge pithoi at the basis of the around the basis of the late Bronze Age tell. Similar examples we have from the plain of Thessaloniki. For example, this is the late Bronze Age Toumba. Here the tell expands around the Toumba. The table, here the table expands around the tell, and it is around 50,000 square meters, if I'm not wrong. And of course, the table of Nea Anchialos near Syndos, which is again a huge early Iron Age site starting from the beginning of the first millennium. Now, in the Anthemous Valley, Amalara and Thermi are the two largest early Iron Age sites. And there seems to be some special, one wonders why this happens. This is the Thermi complex, the Toumba and the tell, and the table, and this is the Amalara complex, where there is a table and another plateau that is inhabited at the same period. Now, Thermi, as I said, is rather close to the sea, and also very close to Thessaloniki. So maybe and it was an important site already from the late Bronze Age period. So perhaps it's not difficult to understand why it became a very important settlement. But for Amalara, which is really quite remote, it is quite strange. There is probably one explanation, and the explanation is this feature here. All these stones, and there are square kilometers which are covered by these stones, are remains of gold extraction and gold panning. Now, we don't have any, so far, we don't have any evidence that this activity was taking place already in the early Iron Age. In fact, the earliest evidence that we have for this activity is early Byzantine, and it continues up to the Ottoman period. But the fact that in this remote area this huge settlement is founded, which continues all along into the Roman period, perhaps is an indication that the extraction of gold was a major activity already from the beginning of the early Iron Age, and contributed to the significance of the site. Now, other new features that appear at the beginning of the early Iron Age in Central Macedonia, not in the Anthemous Valley, but probably are related to these changes in the settlement patterns are the appearance for the first time of large cemeteries. There are no cemeteries in the area of the late Bronze Age period. Perhaps a new field for the negotiation of identities, which up to that point was really confined to the area of the settlements. So this really supports the breaking of the limits of the settlement, of the limits of the tells, and the limits that the tells was imposing on the community. And in fact, at Thermi, there is a cemetery that was excavated for a series of years by the Archaeological Service of 6,000 graves, which do not start, however, from the early Iron Age, but they start from the early Archaic and continue to the Hellenistic period. One could see all over, from the Langadas Basin to the Assiros Valley and the Thessaloniki Plain, a demographic increase, which is seen both in huge sites like the ones that I showed, but also in smaller sites which are founded on hilltops mainly during this period. At the same time, there are strong indications for expansion of contacts, both with the Aegean and with Central Europe and beyond. And this is shown by jewelry, weapons, increased quantities of Aegean wares that appear in settlements, and of course the sanctuary at Posidi of Chalkidiki, which belongs to the beginning of the early Iron Age. So maybe these activities could be associated with the rise of the elites. Unfortunately, there's no clear evidence for the rise for these elites as yet. It seems through the evidence from this analysis of the settlements that I tried to present, that the Anthemous Valley communities try to follow this general trend that is seen in Central Macedonia from the Neolithic to the early Iron Age. And with this, I'm finished. Thank you very much.